Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live podcast here today. I'm thrilled to be going live for this podcast, not only on the Educate and Rejuvenate platforms, but also on the Teacher Goals platforms. I have this amazing collaboration with Teacher Goals. I wrote my book with them, and we contribute some content to social media, and we get to do these lives together. So it is so much fun. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. We haven't started the official recording yet. I'll let you all know when it's like, okay, we're recording the podcast. Right now, everybody's hopping in, and I like to just say hello to everybody who's here before I do the podcast where people will watch or listen later. So, hello, Vanessa. So good to see you. Be sure to pop in the chat because for those of you who are here live, we are giving away a signed copy of my book, Educate and Rejuvenate, that came out just last year. That is getting rave reviews on Amazon already, which just melts my heart. One I just read the other day, a more recent review said this will be a bestseller in the education field. And that just literally made my day because I would love that only because I know that this book, if we get it into the hands of more educators, it is going to help you so much to not only educate but rejuvenate. That is why I do what I do, and that is why Teacher Goals trusted me with writing this book and putting all this out there on their platform, because we don't want teachers to burn out, right? So many of us are feeling burned out because we're not getting that rejuvenate piece. We're just teaching and then we're going straight to maybe our family commitments or other things. And that can lead to some major burnout. So, welcome to so many of you here today. Welcome to Andrea and Barbara and Kelly, Latrice, Teresa, Snowda, Jill, Cynthia. I love how every time I do these lives, I see some familiar names, familiar faces, which I love, because what I love about what I do is connecting with educators in a deep way. When I started my company, I was just a TPT seller. I mean, not just, it's a wonderful thing, but I didn't get to know the people on the other side. And now with what I do now, we get to build some great relationships. We get to know each other. And so I love when I see familiar names here. I love when I see new names. Welcome, Kelly. We have another educator here who is certified 5 to 12. It doesn't tell me your name, but that's fine. In Oklahoma, and we'll add this to my teacher bookshelf. Amazing. I would love for you to add this to your bookshelves, to your TBR on Goodreads. If you've read it and you haven't left a review on Amazon yet, that would mean the world to me. We are so close to 50 reviews. And as soon as we hit that, we will send a $5 code to our shop to everyone on our email list, which can get you a free resource. So make sure you're on that. And if you're one of our members, you're like, I already get your resources. Then we are going to put a prepaid Starbucks so you can get a latte on us. We always think of our members too. Cynthia has the Kindle version, would love to have a hard copy. Yes. And if you win, you will get a signed copy. So for all of you who are here live, again, I haven't started the recording yet. The recording will go on our Apple and Spotify feeds, but you all get to be here live in the studio with me and even help shape the episode. I love doing these. It's so much fun. But all you need to do to enter to win, I see there are 243 of you as of this second watching on among the various platforms. So the way you enter, because there are a lot of you who haven't yet, all you need to do is pop into the comments. When you comment anything, just engage with our community here in the chat. Ask your questions as we get into the actual content. And there will be a few times where I actually ask, like I said, you get to help shape the episode. There are a few questions I have throughout where I actually ask you a question and say to put your answer in the chat, and I'll read off as many of them as I can. And so then it's really like a group effort too. So I'm so thrilled for that. So again, my team member, Kinsey, is here. She is in the studio backstage with me. So whatever platform you're on, your comment will be entered in to win the giveaway. So we will be choosing here on StreamYard. Hello, Hannah and Louise, Andrea, Cynthia, Barbara. So many incredible people here. So thrilled to see you. Okay, so I think I explained the giveaway. We are 4 minutes in, so I always love to respect your time, right? Because that is what we are talking about today. Did the screen just get darker for everyone, or did it just for me? Like my camera suddenly seems, oh, it's probably like literally I have my window open. I think it's actually the natural light coming in and the clouds coming over. I've just never had that happen while I'm on a live. That that was a little weird. Um, anyways, so thrilled to be here with all of you. Again, get your comments into the chat because when you do, you'll be entered to win a signed copy of my book, Educate and Rejuvenate. And really, the whole purpose of the book, the subtitle is a 3-step guide to revitalize your teaching, renew your spirit, and reignite your passion for life. So the purpose of the book is to not just help you be a better teacher, but honestly, it focuses even more on the rejuvenate piece, even more so. Our company, we help with all of it because we do the curriculum and everything we do. But with this book, you can't fully be at your best as an educator if you're feeling burned out all the time. And yet so many of us are. And if you are, there's no need to feel bad about it. It's just recognizing that and being like, oh, you know what? I maybe not rejuvenated myself enough. But when we actually did a survey, and actually I'm gonna share this in the episode too, but I always get ahead of myself. Darlene is here, a new teacher from New Jersey. Kathleen, welcome. But anyways, the rejuvenate piece is just so important. And that's why today on the podcast, we're doing a live podcast today. And it is how to design your ideal week without burning out. So I'm really thrilled. This is the first time I'm going to be talking about this, like really honing in on just this piece of the book. Because usually I even when I did a podcast about it, I teach the whole thing, like from beginning to end, everything I teach in chapter 10. And we're going to be diving deep on just creating your ideal week. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to start the episode. Not much changes on your end. I'm just going to do the little hook and then I will say my team will insert the music intro here and then we'll get into the episode. I'll still be watching your comments. Though when I'm like really in the content, I will be, going through my notes and everything and then I'll pop in. Okay, ready? Let's get going. Do you ever feel like you're constantly putting out fires instead of making real progress in your teaching? Do you end the day feeling exhausted, wondering where all of your time went? This is the urgency effect at work. Our brains prioritize urgent tasks over what actually matters long term. But what if you could flip this? What if your week was designed to prioritize what's truly important in teaching and your life outside of it? Welcome to Educate and Rejuvenate, the podcast. Okay, and then we'll insert the intro music here. I am so thrilled to be here for regular listeners of the Educate and Rejuvenate podcast who are seeing a new episode pop into their feed on Apple or Spotify. I bet you're thrilled to see this because we've been on a short break, but I couldn't leave you hanging for too long. So I am thrilled to be here in your podcast feed again. And for those people who are here live in the studio with me, I am so thrilled that you're here. In fact, I am currently recording this episode live with Teacher Goals. I'm streaming onto the Educate and Rejuvenate and Teacher Goals platforms. So for those who don't know me, because there are a lot of people here who probably don't because you are following Teacher Goals, you maybe haven't heard of me or Educate and Rejuvenate yet. I am a former 3rd grade teacher, and then I subbed for K through 6. Now I homeschool my kids since 2019. So I still teach in a different way now. And I am a certified life coach. So I also teach in my current job, in my current professional realm, I am teaching teachers all the time. And what I do here at Educate and Rejuvenate is I am a certified life coach. And also my team and I, we do curriculum to help teachers not only educate, but also rejuvenate. We help with both pieces of that. We have tons of fun teaching ideas, but also what we really found as I was diving in, like COVID, everybody's burned out. It wasn't just more printables that we need, right? It is also, how do I not burn out? How do I set boundaries so I'm not working like 60-hour weeks, right? So that is why I certified as a life coach. And now I support teachers in really holistic. We're looking at teacher wellness as a whole. Yes, we are looking at resources, teaching ideas, but also how do we rejuvenate ourselves? And so I am a contributor here at Teacher Goals with these lives, some social media content, and I wrote this book, and I'm so thrilled that Teacher Goals trusted me to write this book and put it on their platform. I love their mission. And the reason I wrote this book is because, everybody here, we don't want to burn out, right? We love what we do. We went into teaching for a reason. And so I want to make sure that we can hit that rejuvenate piece as well. Chris says, my job has become dealing with the urgent all the time, it seems. And I feel you. And there is a time where you need to deal with urgent things, right? I mean, I've had several urgent things pop up this week unexpectedly. And so we'll talk about that, like creating this ideal week. As I explain it, you might at first be like, wait, Kelsey, you might have little alarm bells going off in your head. Like, wait, this isn't going to be perfect or ideal all the time. That is not the point. And we'll talk about what the point in the ideal week is and how you work in the urgent stuff too. But really, we're just making sure that we don't miss out on what's important, that we don't burn ourselves out, that we don't like never leave work, because let's be real, you could always keep doing something, right? Always, no matter what. So there's a time and a place where it's like, okay, right now I need to close the door. I need to maybe not bring my teacher bag home with me on the weekend, whatever it might be. Are you willing to speak for district professional development? Thank you, Teacher Goals. Yes, yeah, definitely reach out if you are looking for that. Hannah says, same, Chris. Okay, so I wanted to mention the reason why today we are focusing specifically on time and the ideal week is because I just did a survey and we had over 600 teachers take the survey. Which actually ended up blowing my mind because I thought this would be a quick 5-minute survey. We left it open-ended so people could just type what they want, but I thought I'd get like a few word answers. Our people in our Educate and Rejuvenate community, we had them average 23 minutes on their responses. So we just got like so much information about what is happening in the trenches right now with educators of all kinds. We had teachers, we had homeschool parents, we had administrators, we even had some yoga teachers. We had like all kinds of educators who took this survey. And the biggest issue that came up was having enough time. Like, I don't have time for this. I'm feeling overwhelmed because I don't have time. And so that is why we're like, okay, we need to hone in on this for a little bit. Like, see, how can we help our relationship with time? How can we still are going to have the same 24 hours and it's never going to be perfect, but how can we make it better? How can we have better boundaries? How can we be a little bit more intentional with our time? So that is what we are talking about today. And it really does start with that word intentional. So what I want to know and for those who are here live, I would love for you to answer this question in the chat. What does it mean to be intentional with your time? If you're here live, I want you to put your answer in the chat. And again, when you do that, you'll also be entered to win the signed copy of Educate and Rejuvenate. If you're here listening to this episode, you're going to definitely want the book because what we're talking about today is literally only 2 pages of the book, 2 or 3. And so we're like diving a little deeper in those 2 or 3 pages, but like the whole framework, it's in here. You're going to want a copy. So again, your comment gets you entered to win. So what does it mean to you to be intentional with your time? And if you are watching or listening to this later, maybe you're watching on the Educate and Rejuvenate app, or maybe you're on Apple or Spotify, just think in your head to you, what does it mean to be intentional with your time? Vanessa says planning your time. Cynthia says planning with purpose. Jill says doing only the things that are meaningful and will move the needle for you and or your students. I am loving these responses so far. Kathleen says prioritizing what is truly in caps important and following through. Yes, these are such great answers. And really we're all kind of saying that same type of thing, right? Grace says prioritizing what is important, right? And yes, and that means we're looking at the important things and not just the urgent, right? The urgent are like those fires that come up like, oh, this has to be done right now. But like 2 weeks or a month or a year from now, that's not going to matter. I'm not moving the needle on the things that long-term I need to happen for my career or for my students or for my own children or for, again, we're not just teachers, right? We have all these other things in our lives. So for our marriage, for our family, for a volunteer work we do outside of school, whatever that might be for you. Right. So LinkedIn user said it is to prioritize quality over time spent with classroom duties while taking time for self-care. I love this. Barbara says, intentional with your time means you are using your time purposefully, doing meaningful tasks. Melissa says, doing the things that to prioritize what is best for kids. Love it. We all are like, what is best for the kids, right? Not just for their test scores, not just for that, but what is best for them long-term. Chris, I love that word intentional. Reminds me of Rhapsody Jordan Parisi. I may have spelled her name wrong, but she is so wise and offers such good counsel as well. I love that. And I love getting recommendations because I have not heard of her. Snowda says, prioritize what is needed and meaningful. Hannah says, being intentional with my time is deciding what is important to me and setting the boundaries needed in order to live a happy, healthy, balanced life. Jerry says, intentional with time to work to the best ability to teach with positive results. Kelly says, planning what I need to prioritize, purposeful. Yes. And I feel like we're all kind of on the same pattern, right? And it really goes along with what I pulled up the dictionary definition. If you're to look up the word intentional, it says done on purpose or deliberate, right? So it means we are being deliberate with our actions, deliberate with our decisions, deliberate with what we are doing with our time versus it just happening, versus it just being thrust upon us, as Glinda would say. I love Wicked. Anybody else? But again, we have things thrust upon us, right? But we could let that happen all day long if we don't choose our priorities. They're just going to be given to us, right? So we need to choose what is important as well. And yes, we do have other things that come up. We do have requirements of our job. We do have responsibilities. We're not negating any of that, but also we're looking at what we can control with our time. Okay. So, the one thing that before we even get into the ideal week that I want to talk about that I didn't even quite get into in the book, but was really kind of behind it. The reason why the ideal week, what we are about to dive into, really matters is because we have so much decision fatigue in our day to day as educators. I mean, I say that and you're probably just nodding along, right? Like, oh yeah. Like, how many decisions do you think we make in a day? How many do you think? Tell me in the chat if you're here live. And if you're not, just think about it. How many do you think we make? And what do you think? Like, decisions from what to wear, what to have for breakfast, which activity on TPT to use, right? So many decisions. 20,000, Vanessa says. Yeah, big number, right? Christy says way too many. Jill says 3,000 or 30,000. Kathleen says, ha ha ha, too many to count. Kelly 1,000, Teresa 100. So again, Google is my friend. now this isn't good enough to be like a source in my book. I would have had to dive deeper. But what just came up on Google when I Googled how many decisions do we make on average a day? It said the average adult makes 33,000 to 35,000 total decisions each day. Whoa, right? That's kind of like a mind blowing thing to think about. Like how many decisions we make. And some of them are tiny and don't even really matter. But even if they're tiny and they don't really matter that much, like, oh, which shirt do I want to wear today? Like, doesn't matter too much. Some of us might put a little more thought into it than others. But again, every little thing takes a little bit of our brain power, right? And here's kind of the science behind it. Our brains have a limited capacity for decision making each day. That's why sometimes, like, I'll even admit earlier this week I had a day where I was just feeling so foggy, so much brain fog. And we've been doing a lot behind the scenes with Educate and Rejuvenate. And I've been doing some new things with teaching my kids. And like, I was starting to feel, I was like, why am I feeling so fuzzy? And I realized, like, okay, we've got a lot going on. And I noticed that, right? Again, I'm not saying my life is perfect or I'm perfect at any of this stuff I'm teaching you. But I was able to, because of all the tools that I have that I talk about in my book, kind of pull back and be like, oh, I'm realizing I'm having to make so many decisions right now. It makes sense that I'm feeling this way. And just notice that and be with it, be with the feelings, let it move through. And I actually was like, okay, I need to take a little break and I'll come back to it tomorrow. And that was actually just yesterday. And now I'm feeling so much better. And I'm doing this podcast and got a lot done today, but I had to know when it was time to call it, even though it was earlier than I was planning on. Right. Christy says, I feel burnout around 3 p.m. And that makes sense, right? Because if you think about by 3 p.m., and that's about the time yesterday I was feeling it, think about how many decisions you've made up until that point. And then, you know, the bell rings, the students go, and you're just like, oh man, like all these decisions I had to make during the day. Chris says, some days my brain actually hurts. Yeah. Vanessa said we started planning dinner for 2 weeks at a time so we don't have to think about it. Yes. And this is exactly what we're about to get into, is making decisions ahead of time. Because the more decisions we can do that, the more brain power we have for what matters most, or for what urgent things come up that actually do need to be done. We have more brain power for it. I mean, when you even think about it, think of Steve Jobs and how he was always wearing a black turtleneck, like all the time. And that's something he actually intentionally did. So he didn't have to think about what he was wearing every day. And I mean, he bought ridiculously expensive black turtlenecks, but he like made that decision. So now that's one less thing. And I bet he did that with a ton of things. And that is what we are going to do with our ideal week that we're going to create. So what it does, and we're going to go through the process here in a second, is it's going to reduce our daily and weekly decision making on our time. So you're not doing your weekly planning again, because I talk about like planning out each week and being intentional with our time, doing some time blocking. If you feel like that's, something you want to do each week, right? I find that very helpful personally. But then you're not starting from scratch. You have kind of a template, like this is what my ideal week looks like. And then again, when you're creating this, you're remembering the title of it, the ideal week. It doesn't mean every week looks just like that, because sometimes we have parent teacher conferences. Sometimes you might have additional IEP meetings. Sometimes you might have a dentist appointment or physical therapy, or you might have, like I had a few weeks ago, my daughter had a performance that had like a dress rehearsal and like a million things. So that week was like, oh yeah, we had a lot of extra stuff, right? But it's just kind of your template that you get to start with. Like on a regular week, this is what I would like it to look like. This is when I'll leave school on each day of the week. And maybe it's not the same time. Maybe you know that you can't leave right at contract time every day. Like that would stress you out. Like, so you're like, okay, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to stay longer. And then on the other days, I'm going to go home right on time or whatever. Again, it's going to be personal to you. And that is the beautiful thing about it. So I want to show you now that we've kind of talked about it, I'm actually going to pull up my section quick of the book. So here is, I've got it pulled up on Kindle. I wanted you to see this visual example that I have right here before we get into the document. So the purpose of creating your ideal week is because each week when we're trying to figure out all of the things that we need to do, it can feel daunting when we're starting with a blank slate. But what if you didn't have to start with a blank slate? What if you had something that you could pull out and be like, okay, here's kind of my template for the week. And then, oh, what needs to change now? Because then you kind of feel like you're coming in. It's almost like when I was writing this book even and had a blank page and it was just like, oh, what do I write? And I found it a lot more fun that once I got a chapter down, even if it was super messy, to go in and be like, how do I fix this, right? How do I make it even better? Or, oh, this isn't actually working. What do I need to do? It's kind of like you're going in and editing that ideal week, that schedule for your week each week. And again, it's going to look like whatever is going to work out for you. So here are the things that you might want to add to your ideal week. Maybe your contract hours, or if you're a homeschool parent, your current homeschool schedule. You can decide if you want your schedule in more detail or just put like, these are my contract hours. Likely you're already doing your teaching planning somewhere else. You probably don't need that in your ideal week. You could just put, these are the hours I'm teaching, because again, this is a broad overview. It's not about having every minute mapped out. It is just about kind of having a formula for your week. But things that you have every week, such as like weekly meetings, PLCs, if you're a homeschooler, you might have co-ops. If you have committees, after school activities, any extras in your teaching schedule that happen on a weekly basis, weekly classes, lessons, or activities for yourself. So like if you always go to Zumba or yoga or the gym, whatever it is, make sure you get that in there, like your regular schedule. Volunteer work, side hustle time. So many of us teachers have a side hustle, right? This is a great way to work it in and be like, oh yeah, I actually do want to build that TPT store, or I do want to write my book, or I do want to do that, whatever. You add that in there too. If you have volunteer work you do, or if you go to church or any of that, that can also go into your ideal week. So you'll see here that we have this template where, and maybe certain days I go in early these days, right? And then I'm going to teach these hours. And this one, it does have you leaving the same time every day. It's just an example. But you get to pick, right? You get to decide. And I have a template for you, a free template that we're going to put in the chat. I mean, it doesn't even require email. It's completely free. We're just going to drop the link in the chat for you. What if you have appointments weekly, but at different days, times? That is where you wouldn't put it on your ideal week. That is where you do that adjusting each week. Like I have things like that too. So that is where this is just the template for what it is, or it might be like on mine, which I'll show. I usually coach in the club on Thursdays, but sometimes it's Wednesdays. And like today I did a podcast, but I don't do that every week. But I just put like on Wednesday and Thursday, I put open for potentially this, like open for potential podcaster coaching. So you could do something like that. Or again, it could just be like, it's not going to be things like dentist appointments or things that don't happen every week. Those will be when you start with this as a template. and then you go in and edit it week to week as you're doing your weekly planning. So it's not the end all be all, like you have to follow this all the time. And it's also the type of thing that might change as your seasons change, right? But the reason why this is so helpful is because it can help you to have something to start with each week. I see, or I also like to have a little section like Wednesdays from 2 to 4 that is open for appointments. Yes, exactly. That is like, you could be like, this is one, like if I try to schedule, like for me, it's Friday mornings. Cause again, again, it probably isn't if you're teaching in a classroom right now. For me, because I'm homeschooling and running this business, Friday mornings is currently in this season of life. When I was teaching, it was not Friday mornings. It was a different time. But again, you might have your time where it's like, yeah, Wednesdays, 2 to 4 p.m. That is when I schedule appointments. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing this one, and then I'm going to share that template. So Kinsey on Team Educate and Rejuvenate is going to pop that into the chat. I am going to switch my screens here. So give me just a moment to get that. So I'm going to share with you. This is the document you're getting. We're giving you the full chapter 10 workbook pages. So when you purchase a copy of the book Educate and Rejuvenate, I meant to have my workbook here. I printed and bound it. It's like 130 pages of like all the exercises to help you apply what you do here. And don't feel overwhelmed by that. You don't have to do all of it. It's just all available to you when you purchase the book. It's like a free thing that's included. Right now in the chat, click that link. You're going to have all of chapter 10 because chapter 10 is where I really talk about time and intentional scheduling. So again, before we plan our week or do our ideal week, we want to look at like what in general is urgent, important, non-urgent, or non-important. I'm not going to dive deep into this right now because again, today I have talked about this on Educate and Rejuvenate the podcast before. It is in the book. Today we are for the first time ever really honing in on the ideal week because I feel like because I usually teach it in this full length here that I teach in chapter 10, which again, you're going to want a copy of the book so you can really dive into the full process. But today I really wanted to hone in on the ideal week because I feel like it kind of tends to get glossed over a little bit sometimes when really for me, it has been such a powerful tool and it can change as seasons in your life change, right? You can like maybe even quarterly, like look at it. And obviously for summer, you're going to probably need a different schedule too, right? So what it is we have from 5 a.m. until 11 p.m. here. You're hopefully going to have sleep on some of these hours, but we just, depending on if you're an early bird or a night owl, we want to have you fully covered. So what you're going to do is you're literally going to think of everything you do on a week-to-week basis, write it out, write it down, and then figure out where in your calendar it goes. And I like to really, again, because Rejuvenate is such an important piece of what we tend not to do as teachers. What is it you're going to do to rejuvenate? Do you go to the gym? Do you listen to podcasts you love? Do you come to Educate and Rejuvenate coaching calls? Do you have your own coaching or therapy? Or do you go to yoga? Or do you go to church? Or what is it for you that you do for yourself? Do you go out with girlfriends on the weekend or guy friends or whatever friends? So again, you can get all of that into your ideal week. Like maybe, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It could just be like, open for fun plans or whatever. Or gym time or self-care. It can even just be self-care and you decide what that self-care is that you need it to be at that time. So I really do like to say put in self-care first. And then Wendy has counseling. Yes, that's always great. Paul says awesome. LinkedIn says phenomenal. Oh, you guys are all so kind. So what you can do from here is just kind of fill it in. And again, in that example, I'm not sure if I actually walked over as well as I intended to. Do you all want more of an example? Do you want me to go back to that? I got a little ahead of myself with showing you the template. But really, you're going to just map it out on here. And I have my example here I could actually show super quick. So again, you have it. There's 2 pages here. There's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You kind of lay it out so as like spread out, right? So you see the times going on each. Vanessa says no. How do I link the template? So the template is linked in the comments So whatever platform you're on, it should just be in the chat. But if you have trouble finding it, you can always email us, especially if you're watching this later and there are like a zillion comments. You can email us at hello@educateandrejuvenate.com and we can send you this template. It's completely free. So you'll fill that out. It's so simple. Like, I mean, it really is that simple, but it is so helpful. I'll show you mine here really quick. Okay. So you have this, and then you can like reflect on your week and all of that. So again, what you do is at the beginning of each week, and I talk about this in the Educate and Rejuvenate book, this ideal week is so you have the template. So then whenever it is on Friday or Saturday or Sunday or Monday morning, whenever it is, you kind of map out your week and plan it, you have this to start with. So then it's less decision fatigue, right? There are certain decisions you've already made, or when you need to change things, such as like when Hannah said, well, what if I have appointments that change week to week? That's totally fine. That's when then you just kind of, you have a starting point, which then reduces the amount of decisions. And again, it just helps so you're not staring at a completely blank slate each week. Like if you work with a planner or a Google Calendar and you look at it and it's just blank and you're like, oh, like you feel that dread, I have to figure all of this out. Instead, you can have this, you can have it on paper, print it out like I do here. And you're like, oh, I have this to refer to, or you might even start to kind of know it. Like you kind of know your ideal week once you've done it. Like I kind of do right now. I already know kind of which, I know when I'm working out. I know when I'm working. I know when I'm coaching. I know when I'm doing all these different things in general. Now there are changes, right? Like this podcast isn't something I do every week. I do want to start doing it more often. But Wendy says I need something like that. Yeah. So let me show you my example quick. I don't know why it keeps defaulting to that square. Is it backwards? No. So you'll see here, see how I just kind of marked it up and like have these, and it's not like you have to have every minute plan. Like see, like I have quite a bit open here. And then here I just have open for potential club coaching. And again, mine looks different because I'm homeschooling and working on this company right now versus teaching. But if I were teaching, I would have had like what time I was going in, the hours I was going to work. I wouldn't do my like, I taught third grade, right? So I wouldn't put like my breaking down like, oh, I'm doing language arts here and math here. I wouldn't worry about that on the ideal week template. Literally, I would just put, these are the hours I'm teaching. This is when I get in. This is when I leave. Like this is your overarching schedule for the week. And then, again, you have the second page for the rest of the week, right? And I just kind of do blocks. I like, again, mine's messy, right? It's not like perfect, but it's not meant to be. So you have that template. It is free for you to use so you can put together your own ideal week. Then once you've created it, and you do that weekly planning, you're just asking what else is happening this week. Oh, I have a doctor's appointment. So I need to move this, or I need to get out of school a little bit early for that. Or, oh, I have this IEP meeting, so I'm not going to leave at contract time. I'm going to be leaving at this time. Like you just make those adjustments and you have it open for that. But what it helps with is you kind of make that decision ahead of time. So you're like, if you don't have that additional IEP meeting or you don't have that doctor's appointment, you've made that decision of I am leaving at this time. And so you get to just, kind of stick to that as best as you can. You've already made that decision. It's not like, oh, when am I going to leave? You just know. You know that I planned on leaving at this time. And as you'll create your first one, and then you'll notice what works and what doesn't. And that's when you can change it. You can change it up, right? You can be like, okay, I thought I could leave at 4 p.m. every day, but that's just not feasible for me. So on these days, I'm going to stay later, or I'm actually going to make it my goal to leave at 5, and I'm happy with that. And that's when I can stick to whatever it is for you. Any questions so far? Wendy says, I feel burnt out at 10 a.m. We get up at 4:30 a.m. Yeah, I feel that. 4:30 is very early, Wendy. So Linda says, gotta jump off. Thank you for all you do. No worries. We're glad you're here for whatever time you're here. She's probably already gone though. So Chris says, love these ideas. Cynthia says, this is great. I heard you talk about this before, but having the visual is so helpful. I am so glad that helped. So I do want to talk about a few mistakes that people commonly make when they do this template. So and we're going to talk even more about this. I am doing a workshop in the Educate and Rejuvenate Club where I hope to have some of the people come on, it's kind of like during our event, we had like I taught the process of goal setting that I teach. And then on day 2 of the event, we had people come on and they either already had it ready and we like improved it or we did it together. And everybody, whether they're the person who came on or the person just watching, learned so much. You're not going to just hear like, oh, here's this template and here's how you can fill it out, but you're going to see the actual process of someone putting it together. So if you purchase a copy of the book, you get a full month of the club as a bonus. When you go to teachergoals.com/educate bonuses, you just have to put your order ID from Amazon or wherever you purchase the book and you'll get a free month. So you can join us on that workshop next week. If you're like, wait, Kelsey, I love the idea of this. I need a little bit more support. So that is happening. Or if you're already a member, I see some of you here, some of our awesome Educate and Rejuvenate club members. We've got that for you. But I want to let you all know here just a few mistakes that I see people tend to make. One is over scheduling, right? Like you make every single, like you don't have any white space. Like that's a problem, right? Because we all know that stuff does come up, right? Oh yeah, that's what Chris says just now. I love time blocking, but I have a tendency to not allow enough time for my tasks. So I need to be better at allowing enough time. Yeah, I always try to allow more time than I think something will take. And then I make sure to have some white space in there too. And that means one thing naturally with that I've been getting better at is putting fewer things on my to-do list, which sounded impossible to me for so long. But there are a lot of things that we think we have to do that when we really dig in deep about it, like, does my bulletin board need to be perfect? Oh, no, it doesn't. I could spend a lot less time on that. So when we really take that time to dive in deep and we have our ideal week, I'm like, okay, I want to leave by this time. How can I make that happen? It can really help. But again, that's where overscheduling, like packing every minute and setting yourself up for burnout. Yeah, embrace the white space, like Chris says. So the next thing is not leaving buffer time. So like if you put things like maybe like it was realistic, like the amount of time, but you didn't have any buffer in between. So that just made it so you burn out, right? Where there's no like, oh, there's no chance to breathe. Like that can be hard too. And also being too rigid, like taking this as like gospel that you have to like follow through completely. And it's not, right? It's just something to help you. Like nobody else is going to see it. It's just to help you. So don't be too rigid with it. So again, those would be my tips for as you're filling it out and as you're utilizing it. And again, I would say your first one you do is your rough draft, your first draft. And then as you live it for a few weeks, even 1 week, maybe you might see, oh, this is where I need to adjust it. And that's why, I mean, write in pencil so you can edit it as needed or print another copy if there are a ton of changes you need to make. Hannah says, this week I stepped down from leading something. I explained that I needed to focus on my mental health. They were so supportive and understanding. I love that, Hannah. And yes, that's an example of what I was just talking about. Like probably at a certain point you were like, no, there's no way I could possibly get rid of that. But really, maybe you can. It's just kind of asking yourself, right? Or like, if you don't, what are your reasons for it? Like, do you like your reasons for like, yeah, I'm going to keep this? And if you do, then that kind of makes you realize, okay, I did have a choice, right? I chose that. I do want a really nice bulletin board. That's actually a priority to me, right? Wendy said, I have 5 kids and lots of my own doctor's appointments. Our calendar is crazy. I feel you, Wendy. Like, yeah, when you've got kids, like, I mean, all of us, whether we've got our own kids or we're teaching a class of 30 of our kids, right? We've got so much going on. And I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying you don't. Like, let's be real. We do, right? But it's really just about like our relationship with time and getting to where like it's okay if not everything gets done. I think a lot of it is about like we talk a lot in Educate and Rejuvenate about self like acceptance, and a lot of that we talk about towards the beginning of the book, like chapter 1 of the book, the things of just being an observer and noticing what's going on. And really all the tools we talk about in the book will help when the time doesn't go according to plan. So again, the book is called Educate and Rejuvenate. I mean, there is the little one in the corner that's been here the whole time, but all the concepts I talk about in there are really helpful. Okay. So let's see. I have like a bunch of notes, but I really didn't stick to them. So now I just really had more of a conversation with all of you. So now I'm looking at my notes to seeing what I might have missed. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Vanessa said, I would love an editable copy so I can plug in all the weekly things on top of it and change it every week. Oh, that is a great idea. We might have to think about that in the future. Chris says, not feeling the plan is flexible, life happens, but we can keep intentionality in mind. Yes. And the thing is, like, while you might create your ideal week and you don't stick to it perfectly, you're probably still doing way better than if you hadn't have done it to begin with, right? You're still being a lot more intentional. I mean, the fact that you even have something to compare it to, because for so long, so many of us have just like, again, let everything just happen, right? Like all the things are just happening to us. And this is where we can be like, okay, these things I do need to do, these things, yeah, like, I mean, there are meetings that come up we don't have control over, and there are things that we don't have control over, but we can focus on what we can, right? Okay, so today was all about learning this ideal week and how you can apply it. Next week, again, I'm doing a workshop where we're going to dive in. I'm going to help some of you create your ideal week. So if you're in the Educate and Rejuvenate Club, that is next Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you are not yet, if you purchase a copy of the book, go to that link right now, teachergoals.com/educate bonuses, and fill out the form with your order ID. You will not only get the book and the full workbook, you'll also get a free month of the club to come try it out and come to that workshop. And I would love to have you there, because if you're still watching or listening to this podcast, you probably want to get a better relationship with time and your schedule. And I'm here to help you do that, along with so many other things that go along with that. And yes, we do have a winner. We are about to announce. I told Kinsey not to let me forget. LinkedIn user says, great title, Educate and Rejuvenate. I enjoy the underlying theme of acceptance. Yes, we talk a lot about acceptance, especially in chapter 1 of the book. I actually start the book right off the bat with like really just getting to know ourselves and our self-talk and being curious and compassionate rather than judgmental towards ourselves, which all of us tend to be. So again, make sure to grab that copy of the book. If any of this resonates, if you're still here after 41 minutes of recording this podcast, that means this book is probably for you. Okay. So key takeaways from today, we are talked about all the decision fatigue we have, right? All the decisions we have to make every day. And the ideal week when we do that is helping to limit the amount of decisions we have to make while we're doing our weekly planning. But the point of the ideal week is just to have a template that we use each week. It's not to be the end all be all of your schedule. You will have things that change week to week that you'll adjust, but it is a tool that you have to help you start off your week on the right track. Okay. I had so much fun being on the podcast with all of you today. Cannot wait to chat with you soon. I plan on doing another podcast with Teacher Goals here next month if I don't see you before then. But I would love to see you at the workshop next week. Purchase a copy of the book if you haven't yet, and you'll get to join us. All right. Take care, everybody. Okay. And that was the live podcast. So that is the end of the actual episode. And I'm going to check in on the comments and announce our winner. So the winner of the free book is Christy Kirkpatrick. So Christy Kirkpatrick, you won the signed copy of Educate and Rejuvenate. So make sure to claim that prize. Email us at hello@educateandrejuvenate.com, and we will get you that signed copy of the book. And now if you didn't win, again, there are so many things that you'll get when you snag a copy of the book. You'll get the full workbook. You got just 10 pages of it with that freebie I sent. You'll get the full 130-page PDF workbook. You will also get access to the Educate and Rejuvenate app. We have a full course in there, only for people who purchased a copy of the book. When you fill out the form to claim your bonuses, you'll get that course that basically there's a module where I go over the workbook, each chapter. So you get support in applying those exercises, and each video is under 10 minutes. So it's really quick and snappy. You can use the app on the go. We also have the recordings of all the book club calls we did that dive deep into the content. Can we request a signed copy with our usual order? Courtney from LinkedIn. So on the orders just come, like, it's on sale on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But if you buy a copy and you email our team, we can get you a signed sticker you can put into it. So we still have some of those, or I'd be happy to do more So any of you who are hearing this, you're like, I wanted a signed copy. Go ahead and buy your copy and then email our team and we can get you a sticker that you can put in the book. I just can't sell. I can't sell the book on other platforms. It is through Teacher Goals Publishing, and so it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's at Target. Not in person at Target, just Target online. I got it on Kindle. Don't think it had an order number. No worries, Wendy. You can just I think it does have an order number. If you need support, Wendy, I know we're in touch with you. And also I believe you're an Educate and Rejuvenate Club member, which would have unlocked that content for you too. So you should be good to go. But email us if you need support. So yeah, tons of bonuses for our book buyers. We just want to make this like a no-brainer purchase. It's not only a book, it's basically like a full course that I could probably be charging more for. And the workbook, which is like another basically whole book in itself because it's helping you apply all the content in it. All right. I don't see any other questions. So Courtney from LinkedIn, if you would like a signed copy, just purchase it on Amazon or whatever, and then email hello@educateandrejuvenate.com and we can get you a signed sticker we'll mail that to you that you can put in your copy. And that goes to anybody here in the chat. If you're like, I want that, just email us and we'll get it to you. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So I will be planning on doing at least one podcast here next month. But make sure you're following at Educate and Rejuvenate, and I have a whole bunch of episodes I've done on Educate and Rejuvenate, the podcast as well. And they're all in our mobile app, which you can download. And again, most of all, you're going to want a copy of this baby. Like this is everything in this book, like that I talk about. Like if there were just one thing that you got from Educate and Rejuvenate, and I mean, I could tell like I don't get much at all off of like each person who buys a book. Like I just know it's going to make such a difference for you. So this would be like, if you do one thing, I'd recommend purchasing this book. Okay. I will talk to all of you later. Hope you have an amazing night and we'll see you soon. And Chris says this book helps in so many areas of your life, not just teaching. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wendy, have a great night. Hannah loves the book. So relatable. You're all amazing. I always love spending time with all of you here. So I'll be back soon. Bye, everybody.